train ride in the world, prettier than the one from New York's Penn Station to Albany. 10 of the 17 people in our class took that train up to the first June residency. The solemn, solitary appreciation that those of us on the train had for the violent ripples of the Hudson River, which ran along the tracks, and the eerie, radioactive orange just after sunset light, is one of the few things we all had in common. We sat in separate rows, separate cars where possible, pretending not to see one another when we passed each other in the aisles, knowing these 3 hours would be the last we'd have completely to ourselves for the next 10 days. It was half camp, half graduate program we were headed to. Half vacation, at least it used up all our vacation days, half second job. We sometimes hated telling people we only had to be on campus for 2 short residencies a year, because it made it seem like a part-time program, when in reality, we had to mail our professors packets with 20 pages of new work and 2 critical papers every month, which was considerably harder than drinking wine on campus during the stretches we were technically in school. In between residencies, we didn't have the luxury of writing all day, and had to set alarms an hour earlier than we would have for our paying work alone, and we scribbled good lines on napkins during lunch breaks. But we graduated without all the debt. There are fewer than 10 low-residency MFA programs in the country, and the classes tend to be small. But that only makes it a more exclusive club. Fielding's program was set up so that its students had minimal interaction with the liberal arts undergrads. Our residencies were held during their summer and winter breaks. The undergrads had not yet tasted the tedium and burnt coffee that best characterizes most entry-level office jobs, which we felt certain kept them from fully appreciating the beauty of a campus we loved at first sight. We all had secret lives back home. We were doctors and judges and waitresses, baristas and teachers and marketing managers. We had children and grandchildren, boyfriends, wives, and pets, pictures and anecdotes about whom, it was silently and mutually agreed, would come out for sharing only once, in the beginning of the first residency. They were the tools of our procrastination, interrupting the stories we were working on to ask for a warm cup of milk or the name of the new neighbor, just when those stories were starting to get good. This was our time for which we had given up tropical cruises, family reunions, and exotic destination weddings. We had shown up tired and droopy to our jobs the mornings after all-nighters pulled to make packet deadlines, and typed dialogue on our cell phones in the middle of our children's dance recitals. And so, during the 10-day stretch when our part-time campus beckoned and kept us, we guarded our time vigilantly, careful of the omniscient threat of home and all its comforts. The program's students generally fell into 3 categories. The first was the married accountants, or married ad copywriters, or married drug reps, people who had jobs that no one's practical father had ever warned against. Monotonous, reliable, well-paying work that came with benefits and retirement plans and that nobody ever dreamed about doing when they were young. These holders of practical jobs were almost always men, but it was not their practical jobs or their gender that really defined this first kind of student. It was their boredom. When they were off campus, they fought their boredom in the small suburban towns they lived in by writing gratuitously violent stories in clunky, showy prose that always felt like a version of somebody else's writing, but less sure of itself, less effortless. It was prose you could feel working. The rest of us almost felt bad for them, because it was clear that their overwritten westerns and Brooklyn crime novels had been written by someone who had never seen the desert or ridden a subway, but also that these stories had been labored over, redrafted again and again, and were loved. We didn't, though, feel that bad for them, because during the 10 days they were on campus, this group of students fought their boredom by flirting with the 20-something female students who had not been out of school long enough to realize that the beers these men bought for them and the men's willingness to laugh at their jokes or encourage their latest novel ideas were all bad clichés. The only people more convinced than the rest of us that these men would never do anything with their lackluster after-hours writing ambition and their time in the program, except maybe strain their marriages even further than they already were the men themselves. They didn't have the stacks of rejections the rest